So with the respect for everyone's time, I think we will start the webinar. I can see that people are still logging on, so they can join as we go along. But good afternoon in Denmark, and welcome to this third webinar in the series from Silicon Valley, AI updates from Silicon Valley, implementing AI do's and don'ts. I will come back to you in a minute with some practical information about the webinar and how it's going to work. But before I do that, I'd like to hand it over to my partner and good friend, Leah, in the studio in Copenhagen, who is with ATV there. Leah, good afternoon in Denmark. How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you, Christian. It's getting dark here, and just as the sun is rising where you are. Welcome to this third IA update from Silicon Valley. My name is Leah Lefland, and I'm the Managing Director of the Danish Academy of Technical Sciences, ATV. The United States has a huge impact on the rest of the world, including Denmark, both politically, as the media coverage of the just decided American election shows, but also in relation to innovation and technology. Silicon Valley is at the forefront when it comes to developing and implementing new technology, especially the development and implementation of artificial intelligence is a key position of strength in Silicon Valley. At ATV, we thrive to make Denmark a leading science and engineering region in the world. Artificial intelligence plays an important role in achieving this vision, as this new technology has the potential to revolutionize Danish businesses and research. Therefore, we are pleased to offer these IA updates in collaboration with the Danish Innovation Center in Silicon Valley, ICDK. These IA updates are results of the latest collaboration between ATV and ICDK. Our aim is to inspire Danish technology leaders and show why IA needs to be a central part of decision-making and strategy. ATV and ICDK has completed 3 very successful IA academies that included a study trip to the tech and innovation capital of the world, Silicon Valley, where the participants learn from leading experts within the field. And now you also get to learn from these leading experts, but from the comfort of your home work desk or from home. ATV is an independent think tank that utilizes the combined knowledge of our more than 800 academy and partners members from both academia and industry to make sure that Danish tech and knowledge ecosystem works effectively and is as strong as possible. If your company is not a member and you think this unique network sounds attractive, you are very welcome to reach out for me. Today's webinar is conducted as an ATV Tech Talk supported by the Villum Foundation. For now, I look very much forward to hearing today's interesting presentation, and I will give the floor back to you, Christian, in Silicon Valley. Please.
Thank you, Leah. Yes, so my name is Christian Malherby. I'm a senior advisor with the Danish government. I'm based in Silicon Valley at the innovation center we have here, one of 8 innovation centers around the world. And basically what we do is we aim to build bridges between Denmark and the rest of the world, facilitate learning, partnerships, and growing the companies and governments there. And we do that by conducting advisory meetings like this and many other things. I'll jump right into the meeting today and start by introducing today's topic and today's speakers. You will hear about implementing AI in your business, and the goal is to have a roll up the sleeves session where we touch on some of the do's and don'ts in regards to strategy and organizational implementation. And to do that, we have a set of great speakers who I'll introduce in just a minute. The goal is not to teach you everything there is to know in about 60 minutes. If we could do that, I probably wouldn't be at the Innovation Center. I would be running a very successful consultancy company. But rather, we aim to in the next hour or so to give you an insight that you can use as business leaders to how to implement AI and make it work for your business. In our conversation with Anupam and Kevin in a minute, you'll hear some very inspirational experts in the field. And I've told them that I wanted this session to be down to earth, plain language, informational and useful, clear and concise advice that you as business leaders can take home and implement in your business. And I want it to be a fun and relaxed atmosphere. So this is also what you can expect for the next hour or so. We are conducting this in Zoom, as you know, because you've logged on. Zoom webinar function enables you to ask questions in the Q&A. And I can see someone has already done that, which is great. And you can go ahead and ask more questions along the way, and we will make sure that they get answered by Anupam and Kevin. In reverse order, I'd like to introduce Kevin DeWalt first, who's the second speaker for this afternoon. Kevin is the founder of Prolego, a company that advises Fortune 1000 companies about how to implement artificial intelligence in their business. Kevin is also an angel investor and the founder of a number of companies and has been working with AI for a large number of years. So he really knows what he's talking about. He has a master's degree from Stanford University, an MBA from University of Maryland, and is talking to us today from Savannah, Georgia. You'll meet Kevin shortly, and he'll talk about the practical aspects and organizational considerations that you need to take when implementing AI. But first, I'll introduce Anupam. Anupam Kundu is the co-founder and CEO of Real Value, an AI-powered decision platform to increase engagement and boost conversions for global brick-and-mortar businesses. Anupam has a background in computer systems and operations management and has been fortunate to spend more than 20 years of his career accelerating growth through digital transformation initiatives. And he's done that for companies like Google, Ericsson, Credit Suisse, Fidelity, UNICEF, and many more across North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. So what you can expect when listening to Anupam is an expert who has done this with his own hands. And that was important when selecting a speaker for this afternoon. Drawing upon his experiences, he'll explain to you how he has done it and what he has learned and how he has been inspired by an AI course in business strategy at MIT. He'll focus on the right strategic framework for AI implementation. As we've done in the past, I'll hand it over to Anupam by launching a poll. So now you, the audience, have to be active. This poll is running on your screen. Hopefully you can see it. And please indicate where you would say your organization's current status of AI or machine learning adaptation is. So while the audience are making their selections, Anupam, I'd like to hand it over to you. And thank you again for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Christian. Just a correction, Christian. I'm the co-founder at Real Value, but I'm not the CEO. I'm head of product. My CEO would take it kindly that you made a mistake. That's okay.
Okay. I just promoted you.
Yes, I see that. No, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the warm introduction. And I think this is you have created this virtual space while all of us are in confinement to understand about the latest technologies between Denmark and the US and across the globe. That's commendable. Yeah.
We have the poll come in, Anupam. I don't know if you can see it, and maybe if you want to share your slides, I can see that many of the audience are actually actively exploring opportunities to dive in to AI.
I cannot see the poll, but
so we have 50% of the participants are actively exploring opportunities to dive in. 20% have done multiple projects within the AI space in the last year or so, and a few of these projects are in production. We actually have 2 attendees, 8%, who are an AI first business. So this is interesting, a really diverse group. About 20% is starting their AI journey with this webinar. So that's also quite interesting to see.
Christian, quick question. Can you see my screen? Because it says sharing is paused.
Right.
Bring your shared window to the front.
All right. Yes, so I'm watching your screen, Anupam, and
let me know when you can see my screen, and we can get started. And I actually like the way you walked us through the poll results. It would become very easy for me to say that if any of you have answered C or D, then it would have been like, hey, guys who have done C and D, do it, go and tell how to do it for the folks who have done A and B, and you don't need Kevin or me to be on the call here. So that would have been easier. But I guess we would get started and go through the deck. And in the next 15, 20 minutes that we have, I'll just kind of try to make sure that, as Christian mentioned, that the goal is not to touch upon everything in detail and say like, okay, we are going to make you an AI expert when you leave this webinar. But in the process, what we want to live with, at least what I want to live with, is certain principles that tomorrow, if you go and want to start your project, AI first initiative or second initiative, or you are going and speaking to your bosses on how to do this, you have the material ready so that you can get the budget that you need to move forward, right? That's my goal. Are you there?
Yeah, we're here, Anupam, and I'm gonna share your slides. If you cannot get,
no, I can see my slides. I can go ahead. Yeah.
We cannot see your slides, Anupam. So let's. I think now everyone can see your slides.
You can.
Yes, but you need to tell me when to advance, please. I'm sharing them from my screen.
Very interesting. Okay. Why don't I see it? Let me try one more time just to make sure that I can share, and that way it's done.
There we go.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Yeah, thank you so much. So just when we've been discussing with Kevin and Christian about preparation, we've talked about that, who the audience would be, right? And we kind of agreed that the audience would be mostly business executives who are trying to make things happen for their organization. And who better to take an example of an executive than the president, Mette Frederiksen, right? And she has been making decisions, right? So I took 2 videos while I was researching. One is about she telling that she was surprised that Donald Trump is not coming to visit Denmark after they refused the selling of Greenland, of course. And the second one is about when she made everyone laugh about buying animals from the circus, elephants and camel, and everyone laughed. And so the point that I want to make here is that, look, as executives, we all make decisions. And these decisions nowadays are getting either made by AI or being helped to make a decision by AI. So in all of those cases, AI is getting involved. And we as business executives, when we are making decisions to make money or save money or keep our secrets secure, we need to be aware of how AI can help in that process, right? We have a responsibility to steer the team, to make sure that when they are incorporating AI in that decision process, they understand what goes into it, what does the solution do, and then take it on from there, right? And people will probably depend upon the attendees of this webinar to make those moves. And that's where we want to leave you with. We want to leave you with the principles that help you to make those decisions. So taking a little bit forward, I personally think that we are here because today of this guy, Andrew Ng, and he's pretty well known. He's the founder of Google Brain, He has left Google Brain, he's created a new company now, Landing.ai, and he kind of made this prophecy about 2016, that electricity transformed everything 100 years ago. And he had a hard time thinking that why AI would not transform everything. And he's right? It's impacting every business, every critical process that we know today. If you are reading something on your news feed on Apple laptop or a iPad, it's probably like highly curated. There's a recommendation engine that's running behind. If you are selling something online, there is a price optimization that has been done exactly for you. So everything today is impacted by AI, and we need to kind of make sure that our organizations are responding to that, capable of understanding that, and incorporating these things, incorporating AI into these critical business processes. Right. So a few years back, like when I left consulting with Google and started on our own, we started looking at these different ecosystems and started thinking of, okay, where is AI getting used? And we looked at, for example, at agri-tech, and we looked at, okay, pre-production, production, supply chain, distribution. There are so many opportunities of using AI. So one thing that you can do is you can think of your business and think of the entire life cycle, right? And then think of where you can apply AI. Because that would make it easier for you to understand and prioritize and think about where is the most bang for the buck when you go and try to implement AI in your company. So you would think by now all the companies are doing AI and everyone is very happy with their AI results. But this report just came out, I think, last week of October, where it says that only 10% of the company actually got financial benefits from AI. And they came up with a whole host of reasons. And one of the things that really wowed me about that is that it's not about the data, it's not about the infrastructure, it's not about the algorithms. At the end of the day, it's about the people and how they learn and unlearn and how they collaborate. It is a very interesting read. I would suggest everyone to download this. It's free to kind of download this and read it as you guys go about implementing your own solutions. And obviously people will say that, hey, we are doing blockchains now, so we cannot do AI. It's like all the other people who would ignore climate science, right? They would say like, okay, the climate is, the earth is just getting warmer because of some weird reasons. And I think we have seen all of these reasons many times in my last few years of implementing AI solutions and building AI products. And I have found that all of them are true to a certain degree, right? And there are ways to avoid these things, like inability to define ROI, couldn't go beyond a pilot. I don't have the right people. And Kevin would touch upon a bunch of these things too. Lack of infrastructure, or hey, my team doesn't understand how to do this. We don't believe in what we are doing. Somebody is not sharing data with me. Well, we are not going to change, because this is not for us. And there have been so many of these conversations, and it feels like this report also summarizes few of these conversations. So it would be good for you guys to kind of see the percentages and who is doing what and why they say these things. But in my experience, what we have done is interesting is we always tell our customer is like, hey, if you are struggling with defining ROI, either you start with your answers or you start with your questions. And they would be like, what do you mean by that, right? What do you mean by start with answers? To us, the answers are very clear, is that if you want to implement AI, I think that's my dog, sorry. If you want to implement AI, you need to know what are you going to do with it, right? Is it going to make you money? Is it going to save you money? Is it going to change your customer experience? Is it going to help you prevent some fraud or predict risk? Is it going to boost safety? Those are the answers. Like you have your applications in your software applications and your business processes. You need to know where you want to do AI, right? Or you could start with questions. You could say, if I could identify something in a photograph what would I do with that? Right? If I could recognize someone's voice in a piece of audio, what would I do with that? If I could read a customer review on a website, what would I do with that? So there are questions that you could ask, or there are answers that you already have, and that would help you define your ROI. It's not a complicated process. I have examples in the slides to kind of show you that it's not a complicated process, actually. Once you have that, then you need to make sure that you have some kind of a framework. And this is very important for big corporations, IT managers, IT directors, business managers, to when you are presenting your proposal to get your budget approved, or making sure that you have done all your homework, that you have these 5 elements in there, right? When you're going with an AI project. Where are you going to get the data? Who is going to give you the data? How are you going to manage the data? What infrastructure do you need? Do you need this kind of hardware, that kind of hardware? What kind of software do you need? You have to talk about ethics and people, because essentially people are going to be there, right? Some people may become redundant. What will you do with them? What extra work can they do? What other value-added services can they generate? And definitely the ethics part also becomes important, in the sense that what will be the structure of the data? How will you make sure that the data is collected ethically? It's balanced. It mitigates discrimination, and you can maintain the integrity of that. And all of this influence how you're going to work. So there's going to be a part of change management. So if you can incorporate answers or questions, and then these 5 elements in your proposal, most probably you will get your budget approved. At least we got it that way. So that's our experience, and that's why I'm telling you that this is how we got it approved. And this is, I personally think, that a very structured way to look at a project, an AI project or an AI solution, and think of it. I will pause a little bit for people to digest this slide, because there's a lot of things on this slide, and we cannot go into this because there's a lot of things. And if you see this, that getting the AI solution to production is not easy. The understand, define part was the last 2 slides. Now you actually have to go and gather data and build it and evolve it as you go along. And it needs different sets of functions, different sets of people, different kind of governance. And so this is also something that you need to be aware of, how you do these things, right? But you need to do those things. It's not going to go away just by writing one model, because if you look at it, your model is only a small portion. This black rectangular box is the only model that you have. There are at least 7 to 8 different things that you need to do around that model to make sure that that model works well, that the model can be maintained, that the model is ethical, the model is scalable. And to do that, you need infrastructure. So you have to really think well about these things before you jump into it. Can you jump into it? Can you take a small code from GitHub and implement that in your laptop and put it up on LinkedIn for the world to see? Yes, you can do that. But are those systems going to go and into production? Probably not. Kaggle is a very well-known website where all these machine learning specialists go and build models. I have seen statistics where it says that 98% of the model never made it to production. So it's not just about the model. So just be mindful of that. And you need a multifunctional team. And when I mean a multifunctional team, it doesn't mean that you need many people in the team. It just means that somebody in the team needs to have these skills. If you don't have those skills, you probably need retraining. You probably need to hire or consult or borrow from other departments or do something about it. And I think Kevin would speak about these things too in detail, in the sense that without this multifunctional team, you probably cannot address the multifunctional nature of the solution that you're trying to build, right? And without that, your solution will not, even if you build it, it will probably not run on production. It will not probably scale. And I'll come to now to examples, right? So this is something that we have built in about roughly 1 year, I would say, a platform for visual intelligence. And so recently we won some prizes from the European Commission. We got some funding from Euroregion. We got into NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And the platform doesn't, basically, if you think of it, I can explain in 5 seconds. The platform just takes images and videos and gives you insights of what's happening in those videos and images, right? How many people are there? Where are they going? Are they wearing masks? Which direction did they come from? Very simple numbers, very simple analytics, but we are doing it with existing cameras and existing infrastructures that companies have, which makes it complex. So what we did when we started on, particularly for this European hackathon, You versus Virus, was we looked at and we said, like, okay, what do you want to build? We want to detect face mask by looking at images of human faces, right? So we looked at these 5 things: data, where are we going to get the data? What kind of infrastructure do we need? Who is going to work on it? What kind of change management is necessary if we do this? And what are the ethics that we should follow in our data collection and processing, right? And we wrote this down. And it took a couple of days kind of to make sure that everybody agreed to what we are talking about. It's not just 1 line or 2 lines, because there's a lot of complexity behind, like, we are hosting the tool on a popular cloud platform. What does it mean to do that? It's very complicated to do that, right? Our data science team is going to work with a university in France to refine the tool, add features. But the idea is, if you're trying to build a strategy, if you're trying to get a buy-in from a team to do these things, you can do this at your work very easily. And it doesn't need, and then you can present and have a discussion and get the alignment to go to the next step, right? So this is another example, right? The last example that I wanted to talk about here, like about staying ethical, I think it is important because I know that Denmark is on a journey towards trusted AI, ethical AI. The government has come up with an AI strategy. And there are few things that we believe is extremely important beyond just policies, beyond just restrictions, rules, and all these things, right? Let's say we are GDPR compliant. That doesn't say that I am ethical, right? It's just a mark. For us, it's, you want the data from the customer. But why will the customer give you? Why will the customer trust you? And how can you build that trust with your customer? Those are the questions that we keep on asking. Like, okay, if you are going to get human faces to identify face masks, how can we make sure that people actually feel comfortable sharing their data with us? What can we do to get that, right? So I have 3 examples here. One, I think you guys may already know, this was done by this company called Hemnet, which is a real estate portal from Sweden. They have about roughly, I think, 80,000 property on their website, and they collected 200 million clicks from the users on their website. And based on that, they understood what would be an ideal house. And they call it a house of clicks. And they built this house, a prototype, and they sold this house, 700 of them in a weekend. And so if you could do something like that, then the customer would give you data, because you are actually using the data to serve your customer well beyond what they would expect, right? Once you do that, the other thing that is necessary is the ability to learn quickly that what works for your customer and what doesn't. For example, Uber, we all know, is a greedy company. But for all its greed, it built this thing called movement.uber.com, which has anonymous data about transport and traffic in every major city that Uber operates in. and they give this data to the municipality, to the city council, to the state, to the country, free of cost. It's almost like if you go to that, it's almost like a non-governmental organization or a non-profit that's there, right? But it's actually from Uber. And they use this data, they use this to get buy-in from cities and councils and permissions to operate Uber in those cities and villages and townships, right? So the fact that they could do this at a very early stage and realize that this is of value and provide this, help them accelerate their growth. And so the speed of learning is also something very important if you want to stay ethical. Ethical is what you know today may change tomorrow, and you have to kind of move very quickly. And the third thing that is important on this is actually owning up if something is screwed up, right? To have that transparent, courageous transparency to say like, hey, we messed up if something is wrong, and kind of go all out there rather than trying to hide yourself. A great example is Microsoft built this chatbot that was just giving out bad tweets after it was trained on Twitter language, and Microsoft had to pull it out within a couple of days, and they expressed themselves in a very clean way that they are messed up, that their system is not ready. It was an experiment, and they felt bad about what happened, and they pulled out the system, right? So I think these are the few principles that you need to keep in mind as you're building these solutions to make sure that you stay ethical. I mean, you'll get a certification, but it's more than like when you're hiring people, when you're bringing people onto your teams, you need to kind of make sure that they understand these things. Otherwise, they would end up doing the mistakes. And as for change management, this is something that I wrote in 2015, 5 years back. But during the lockdown, particularly from January to this time, I have seen this in, I think, 110 countries being used on LinkedIn, which just amazed me. And I've connected with at least 100,000 people or more just because of this thing. And which makes me feel that because of COVID, there is an opportunity where people are asking to do this transformation, where people just don't want to build a solution because it's going to give them more money. They don't want to work under someone because somebody told them to do so, right? So there is this shift happening and this transformation happening. And when you're bringing in an AI solution into a company, there is going to be opposition. There is going to be winning of hearts and minds inside the company. It's not just about technology. It's going to be a lot about people. And so if you're putting a proposal together today or tomorrow, make sure that you address this transformation part in your proposal, because it's very important. That's kind of all I have, and it's from a very high level, like principle level view of where we could go with a AI solution and how you do structure it and how would you go about it. Christian, open to listening to questions and see how we can answer them.
Wonderful, Anupam. Thank you very much. And I should maybe also remind everyone that your slides will be made available afterwards. So thank you for making them available. And I got a ping from Kevin. Kevin, I know you had a few questions, so I'll let you ask those questions. And I should maybe say, Kevin, you told me that this is your normal background screen. It's not just for today's webinar. So,
Exactly.
So thank you very much.
Awesome. How's the sound quality, Christian? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Excellent. All right. So Anupam, great presentation. I think you've hit on the key themes that I think is important for people to understand. And I think you'll see that mine reinforces a lot of what you said. So with that in mind, first question is, how do you create teams for your work?
We talk about polyskilled people, right? And then we talk about polyfunctional teams. So Kevin, and probably this is true for everyone who is building AI solutions right now. at least what I've seen in Google Meet during my brief period, is that it was made of a bunch of people who had a variety of skills and experiences, right? And this is something necessary, and that's what we do in our teams. It's not just we have a bunch of people working together. No, we have a very selected set of people working together, but they have various experiences that makes them poly-skilled. And then there are some special things that we sometimes don't have that we have to go and borrow. For example, a data ethicist. That's someone's very specialized who would come in and look at our data and say like whether it's clean or not, whether it's ethically usable or not. So we put together a polyfunctional team. It's a very interesting exercise for us. Yes.
All right. And the second is, what is the biggest aha moment for you during customer implementation?
Great question, Kevin. In my experience and in our experience, what we see is that when we go to a customer, they have a certain set of expectations about what the solution is going to do. And sometimes they forget that a lot of AI is about percentages and predictions and confidence level on those predictions. I can say a person is wearing a mask, and then suddenly that person is probably not wearing the mask correctly because they are putting it below the nose. Now, do I call that as person wearing a mask or person not wearing a mask? And so what we see is that in a lot of these conversations, we are trying to come to a level where we can say like, okay, these are your expectations and this is what the algorithm is going to do. And here are 3 things that the human being needs to do. So figuring out that collective intelligence part and setting expectations with the customer, I think is something that we do every time, and we learn a lot, and that's our aha moment.
Oh, in the United States, we call those people Republicans who are not wearing a mask. So. All right, my apologies for the cheap shot of my country's political system. All right, next step, what will be a good piece of advice for companies trying to build a new AI solution in their enterprise?
A good piece of advice. I think the key part is that you are buying a solution, you're not buying an algorithm. Algorithms are pretty easy, I would say, and pretty standard these days. You can get an algorithm built pretty quickly if you have the right set of data, but building a solution around that algorithm is extremely hard. So try to hire someone or get someone who has a problem-solving mentality rather than just algorithmic mentality, because algorithms these days are not that hard to build.
We have a question from Uwe from the audience, and it goes a little bit about how do you manage conservative C-level management that don't necessarily understand AI and therefore is blocking it. Kevin, you responded a little bit and you said you gave some advice. Could you elaborate on that, please, for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a understandable reaction. They should be skeptical. I mean, most technology doesn't live up to the hype, right? So it's understandable that people can be resistant. So what we find works well is get them to buy into a vision. So paint a vision for where things are going. Help them realize what's going to happen in your industry, and start small. Start executing on some small, a model, a project, something you can show traction, and then you can bring people along with you. When you go to the C-suite with, oh my God, we're doomed, or oh my God, everything's going to be great, we got to spend all this money on this stuff, of course people are going to react negatively. So that's my 2 advice. And we found that generally executives are, even the most conservative executives are fairly receptive if you can lay out a process like that for them.
Have you had the same experience, Anupam?
Fortunately, actually, I had the reverse experience in the sense, I agree with Kevin on one part that the problem is not in the C-suite, in my mind, because the C-suite is always looking out for new things, right? They are direction setters. So they're always looking out for new things, and they know these things are happening in their industry. If they don't do it, they will miss out on these opportunities. So for them, it's not the I don't think it's a challenge for the C-suite. I think it goes a level 1 or 2 below, which in sometimes we call it the frozen middle, right? And I think there is a lot of that thawing or defrosting needs to happen in that frozen middle. And what's their incentive? In one conversation, we had to figure out that if we introduce this solution, the security team may not have as many people as they initially had. And so your budget suddenly decreases, and how that do I lose my prestige because my budget is decreased? So that's the conversation that needs to happen. And how do you make that person feel equally responsible, even though their budget is may shrink?
Yeah, or we're already doing it. Or we're already doing that. We're already doing that problem. We're already solving it. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Anupam. We'll come back to you in a minute, but now I'd like to hand it over to you, Kevin. And Kevin, you've actually done a poll as well to kick off your talk, and I'm going to launch that poll for the audience right now. So again, now everyone listening in, tell us a little bit about what's the biggest obstacle preventing you from deploying AI more broadly in your organization. And here you have more than one chance to answer. You can answer multiple. We were thinking that maybe there are several of these factors that implement or impact your implementation. So while the poll is running, Kevin, can I ask you to share your slides, and I will share the poll. See, the questions are still coming in. It's been running for about a minute now, and I'm gonna share the results. So Kevin, you want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing here?
It looks like the center, well, there's it's pretty evenly distributed. So it looks like the center of gravity is unclear value proposition, lack of talent, and leadership unfamiliar with AI. That seems to be the preponderance, although people have answered for all of them. So it looks like there's a variety of reasons. Okay, can you see my screening? Okay, Christian?
Yes.
All right, so, well, thank you so much, everyone. My name is Kevin DeWalt. I have worked a lot in Silicon Valley, although currently I'm living in Savannah, Georgia, which you've probably never heard of, although if you watched any of the presidential election here, my city and my state was in full view for the whole world as we were counting votes over the past couple of days. So as Christian mentioned, Prolego is a boutique engineering company, and we deliver customized AI solutions to the Fortune 1000. So you're going to see that my presentation today is biased by the experiences I've had and what we typically do as a company. And in particular, the kind of solutions we typically deliver is sort of a 3-phase. We help our clients figure out strategy, like what can I do with AI? What's the value proposition to this? You know, why should we do this at all? Help them figure out how to build their initial prototypes. And so we actually have the PhDs, machine learning engineers on our staff that work with our clients to help them get their initial models built, get their initial algorithms built, and then the deployment phase of this, which was Anupam covered quite a bit. So those are the 3 things that we typically do, in addition to training, similar to what we're talking to you about today. Most of our training is actually for business customers, not around technical. So that's what we do. And I think what you're going to hear from me say today is going to really reinforce a lot of what Anupam mentioned in his presentation. So I apologize. I'm going to give you a fire hose of information here. And I trust that all of you are smart enough to figure out of all this information I'm going to give you, what is most relevant for you. But I'm going to try to lay out sort of step by step how you can begin thinking about this journey and implementing. So let's talk first about strategy. And in particularly, I want to talk to you about 2 questions. And one is, what can AI do for us and how do we start? And when we run into executives or any company that's looking to do AI, this is often where the confusion is, because there's so much information out there and a lot of it is so technical and it can seem so abstract. And when you have a new technology like this, that it's so different, companies tend to get just paralyzed and do nothing or spend lots of time studying instead of really acting on it. So I've got 15 minutes to try to explain this really, really complex process to you, which I couldn't do in 15 days, but I would invite you to download our book. You can get it free off our website. It's called Become an AI Company in 90 Days. And we really do try to map out step by step what you can do to get started on this journey. And I think like I said, the framework that Anupam put together really is very much in line with what we recommend as well. So let's talk about the first question. What can AI do for us? This is a tough challenge because if you look at how people talk about AI, it tends to vacillate between two extremes. Either it is so fluffy and high level and conceptual that it's almost inactionable. And if you read a lot of marketing information or people, information, even from some of the large consulting companies, it's really abstract. And then on the other hand, it can be extremely technical. When you talk about convolutional neural networks or the information that's put out in research reports, and there's very little in the middle. And what we find executives and companies are really looking for is a way to think about this technology and how it can be used in their business. So we developed this concept we call AI product patterns. And these are just repeatable common usages of common AI technology that can be applied to business problems. And I'm going to talk to you about 3 today that we tend to use most in our work. The first product pattern is computer vision, and that's just using technology to read, understand, develop, help people figure out what is in this image, right? What's in this video, what's happening. Anything you can imagine a person doing when they're looking at a video or an image, the computers are now getting good enough to do. And that's everything all the way up to using facial recognition on your smartphone to identify who you are, or Anupam's example, using an algorithm to detect who's wearing a mask properly in a crowd. The second one is natural language processing, or NLP. And NLP is just an application of using technology to understand, develop, interpret natural language. It's the things that we speak, what we say, what we write, not the stuff that's in a database that's very structured. So natural language processing. And most of our projects right now are on NLP. And if you're looking for an area to lift your business, I think this is probably the best one to start with because the technology is getting very good, very fast, and the business impacts are so high. And the third pattern is what we call next in sequence predictions. There's not a really good name for this pattern. Some people call it tabular data, but the way I think of it is just stuff that's in a database. So if you can imagine, if you have information that's stored somewhere in a database, your log entries from your different systems, or maybe your sales and marketing information that could be in perhaps like Salesforce or Marketo, or in your sales acceleration tools, all that kind of information, all that kind of data, you can apply next in sequence predictions. So these are 3 product patterns. And the first step in trying to figure out what AI can do for you is to take these patterns and look around your company and start coming up with potential projects. Do we have imagery? Could we use imagery? If so, what would it be? Natural language processing. Do we have unstructured text data? Do we have people reading email? Are they talking to customers? Are they sorting contracts? Are they looking through forms and are they pulling out information? And start walking around your company and looking at your business processes and try to find opportunities to apply this technology. So that's the first phase. I would encourage you to take a close look at natural language processing for 2 reasons. 1, the business impact is so high, and 2, that the economics of building state-of-the-art custom NLP applications for solving business processes has really plummeted in the last 18 months. And what took Google and Microsoft sized budget 2 years ago, a small team in your company can start doing today. If you want a fun way to learn about NLP, we've been experimenting with different ways to talk about this technology with our customers and prospective customers. And so we've recently borrowed a technique that General Electric came out in the 1950s. In the 1950s, they were trying to help the United States figure out how can they understand what is electricity, what can it do for us? And so they started creating comic books that talk about electricity and how people are using it. And they called it Adventures in Electricity. We've started to come out with a series we're calling Adventures in AI. And so again, this is perfectly free, but if you want to understand what NLP is and what it can do for your company, you can take a look at this free comic book we created, and it's going to walk you through the type of issues you're going to encounter when you want to try to do natural language processing in your company. And the story tracks a data scientist who saves the data company with NLP, right? So that's the punchline. So anyway, that's the one technology I would think if you're not currently looking at AI, NLP is a great place to start. Okay, so after you've gone through your company, you've developed a whole list of potential projects you could be working on. I think Anupam mentioned having some sort of framework you can use to winnow these down. There's a bunch of different frameworks out there. Anupam showed one. There's a couple other ones. We have one we call the AI Canvas. And it's really just a way of organizing your thinking so you can figure out, what should we consider when going after this project and how should we prioritize our work. And this is we developed this canvas after taking a lot of big companies through workshops and helping the executives figure out how should they prioritize the AI projects where they're going to spend money. So it covered things like what's the size of the opportunity, and do we have the systems that are able to take and have interfaces for the technology? Do we have the data we need? Is it something we should be working on at all? Is this investment worth our time? And are there bias or ethical issues or policies we have to change? Is it feasible? Are we talking about doing something at state of the art or something that you can take an existing model and download it off of a site? And then finally, do we have ways to measure how effectively this technology is working in our environment? So again, this is a particular framework that you can see in our book. If you want to figure out how can we start sorting all these opportunities and figuring out where we should start. Okay, so this brings us to step 2 of our process. So you've gone around your company, you've looked at a bunch of different AI ideas, and you've sorted them to figure out which ones you want to prioritize on. Next, you got to get started. And prototyping is usually done by what you may have heard of as a data scientist or a machine learning engineer. It's somebody who's going to take historical or existing data, they're going to do some analysis of that data, and they're going to start building models that try to solve a particular business process or a problem that you've identified in your assessment from earlier. So as you begin this process of prototyping, a couple of hints. First of all, don't try to create the expectation that this first project is going to have a financial return in 12 or 24 months. Really, you want to start creating capabilities and get your organization thinking about creating capabilities, not just a project or a model or a problem you're trying to solve. Think about capabilities. As you start looking for team or talent to do this, I would encourage you, we see a lot of companies that step 1 is they go do a Google search for machine learning engineers or data scientists, job descriptions or CVs, and they download something from Google or Microsoft, Amazon, or some other big tech company. Before you do that, I would encourage you to look within your existing teams and your existing talent. You may have people who are already learning how to do this. They're taking courses on the side, they're competing in Kaggle contests, and they want an opportunity to work on this type of technology. So before you hire a company like us, or you start looking to build out your team, start by looking inside with the talent you have today. And the third point is, you're probably going to run into people in your organization and say, well, we can't do this yet because our data is not ready. Right? We can't get started with AI because we don't have the data. Every organization has data problems. Your data problems are never going to get solved. So instead of trying to, quote unquote, solve all your data problems before you start, try to isolate the data problems you can solve and begin prototyping with the data that you have. And once you put that team together, you're going to ask them to build prototypes. This is a pic screenshot of a Jupyter notebook, and that's the environment in which a lot of your data scientists work. And they're going to want to take your existing data, get an understanding of the business problem, and see if they can build models that solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And you want to be able to review that with your business customers to figure out, are we getting the kind of accuracy that we would need when we deploy these models? A couple of tips on this process. First off, time box the effort. Your teams are going to want more data. They're going to want more time to test and more time to evaluate. But to the degree you can, time box it to a specific deadline, because this will force them to make choices and force them to figure out, how do we get a model that is good enough to solve our problems? You're going to have a choice of lots of different business customers to work with. As you try to figure out where you should start, work with the most engaged business partners. This is really critical for figuring out where you start, because you're going to need feedback and buy-in from them to not only get your models built, but to get them deployed, to get them adopted in your infrastructure. And as Anupam pointed out in his really nice diagram that showed ML at the very center, plan for deployment on day 0, which is going to be my next topic. So those are a couple of tips for getting started prototyping. All right, let's check back in where we are. So you used the AI product patterns and you surveyed your company, you came up with a bunch of ideas. You then took those ideas and used some sort of canvas or methodology or framework for filtering down to the priority ones. You got a data science team together and they did some prototyping and you created a model. And after a couple of months of tinkering around with it, you've got something working on historical data that you're excited about and your end users are excited about. And now you got to go ahead and deploy it, right? So I don't know if this is an expression outside the United States, but there's an expression in the US when you're going through a long journey that you say, well, hey, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train. I'm here to tell you that light you see at the end of the tunnel at this point is a train, because we find repeatedly this is the part of the AI journey that our clients most easily overlook. They don't consider the complexity and the challenges of putting machine learning models into production. And by that, I mean deploying them in a way that are able to solve business problems for you. You may find some instances where your data scientists can build models on your historical data and they can run something in a notebook and produce a result, maybe for a sales and marketing campaign. But by and large, for the business problems that are really going to move the needle for you, that are really going to cut costs or bring in more revenue, you're going to be looking at trying to build something you can deploy in your infrastructure and on your environment. And so you have to consider all the topics that Anupam talked about, as model ops and data engineering and infrastructure and security and governance and release cycles and canonical versioning. Everything that your existing product teams or your IT teams or your operations teams have to use for deploying enterprise software, you have to do all that and more with machine learning. So this is something you really want to start planning in advance. Is trying to ask the question, okay, guys, how are we going to deploy that? Who's going to deploy it? And so just to give you an understanding of one challenge you're going to run into, believe it or not, like tactically, one of the issues we see most often is that the people who are the data scientists, the people who build the models and do the experimentation, they will typically work in a prototyping environment. They work like a scientist, right? They're testing and trying different ideas out, but they're usually not, especially on their first couple of models, building production quality code. And so you're going to need a team that can take those initial models that are in notebooks and deploy them as production infrastructure, that can rewrite and have like integration tests and unit tests and everything that you need to do to deploy something in production. I'm just about out of time, so I'm going to wrap things up with a couple of closing thoughts here. So as you think about this journey and as you think about where you want to go, most companies will start thinking about opportunities with this technology and how they can get there, how much money they can make and, how much money they can save. And of course, that's how you want to get your C-suite excited. But I would encourage you to also spend some time thinking defensively. And if you look what's happened in the retail sector and the automotive sector, this technology is going to become table stakes. And we're starting to work with some clients who are seeing some really amazing results using technology like natural language processing. And they're realizing that it's going to give them an advantage over their competitors in terms of speed of action and the cost structure that they can use. And if you're not thinking defensively and your executives or your managers think you've got a long time to be able to take advantage of this technology, and you can just keep doing business as usual, I would encourage you to take a harder look at what's happening and what the world's going to look like when your competitors or startups have access to all this technology. And finally, think long-term, think about capabilities and not solutions. It's not that you're going to create an NLP product or an NLP application, but you want to build up a team and an infrastructure that's good at creating NLP models, deploying them and solving business problems with them for your key constituents. And I think that puts me right at the end now. So I guess I will stop there.
Thank you, Kevin. And Anupam, you pinged me during Kevin's talk. You had a question, and I think it relates to this staffing or putting together the team, right, Anupam? Oh, you're muted, Anupam.
Thank you, Kevin. This is really good. like one of the things that we saw on the poll was that people are scared of the talent, that they don't have the talent. And you referred a little bit around how you kind of, how people copy things from Google and Amazon and post it in their recruitment. So how do you see this? Like, given all this shortage, like how do you start recruiting when somebody wants to build a team?
Yeah, this is a great question. We run into this a lot. So like everybody knows there's a shortage of AI talent, right? And we hear it over and over again, there's a shortage of talent, shortage of talent. We can't get somebody who's got a shortage of talent. I'm telling you, it's not true. Okay. There is a shortage of AI talent, but it's no more of a shortage than any technical talent. There's a shortage of good Java developers, right? There's just a shortage of good technical people generally. So there are fewer there are fewer people who can do advanced machine learning and can do AI. There are fewer people who can do that, but there are also fewer good opportunities for them. So as you think about trying to recruit people, I mentioned in the talk, start with your internal team, but also start thinking more broadly about what you want to do and the type of people that you can recruit to your company, and make a conscious effort to go out and find those people. Go to your local machine learning meetup, find your recent PhDs who've got, a PhD in economics or, environmental science, or don't just go and try to recruit, machine learning engineers graduating from Stanford, MIT, and Georgia Tech, right? You're going to be fighting with the rest of the world for those people. Think about the project that you want, the kind of people you need, and then go out and try to sell the opportunity to work with your company. Go talk to them. Say, look, we are changing. We're gonna be different. Please come join us and change the world. You're gonna do some cool stuff here. And if you make a conscious effort to do that, I think you can start finding the kind of people you need.
Yeah. One of the things, just Kevin, it came to mind as you're talking through, and we're talking about also deployment. How do you think AutoML fits into this whole ecosystem around deployment and all of this? Like, because all these big companies are trying to sell some kind of AutoML.
Yes, so I would love to give you an easy solution to this really complex problem, and I can make a mint doing it. We've actually benchmarked our projects, and we found that the time that people spend like downloading, training, and running machine learning models is like 2 to 3% of the project. Most of the project is thinking. It's thinking, it's analyzing, it's figuring out how are we going to get our business customers to use these. So when I look at what AutoML purports to solve, they purport to automate and solve what I see as the easiest problem. So I'm not saying you'll never find a use for those tools. I'm sure you will, and they're going to get better, and they're going to get better at being able to solve narrow business problems. But if you're looking at being able to, if you're coming to this webinar, it's because you're serious about doing this and you're serious about changing your business. And to do that, you're probably going to have to start building customized solutions and figuring out how do you change your organization. And unfortunately, there are no quick, simple algorithms to do that.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Kevin, I have one last question here, I think, which is pretty much the same question that you asked me back, and I want to ask you back, is how do you make build versus buy decisions when I'm trying to do something in AI?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So the economics of AI are not like traditional software application, right? So in traditional software and in SaaS-based systems, the reason that software margins are so high is because you can build something one time and sell it again and again and again. Like, you're not going to go build your own CRM system, right? You're going to download, you're going to buy Salesforce or something else. But in AI, the core IP is free. So what you see out of the research community and the algorithms you can download for nothing off of these frameworks like PyTorch and TensorFlow and Scikit-learn, the core IP is generally free. So what gets you an advantage is your data and your ability to build business processes around that. So of course you cannot build everything yourself. But if you're talking about a situation where you have a unique advantage of, we want to get ahead with this project, we want to get a unique competitive advantage with what we're doing, you're going to want to build that yourself. You're going to want to buy when you're talking about infrastructure technology that can help you accelerate what you're doing, or when there is no unique data advantage. So Anupam brought up the idea of detecting masks and crowds, right? There's no unique data advantage for doing that. Somebody can build the good mask detection technology based on open source images and apply that to almost every company. That's not something where there's a unique data advantage. That's a great kind of product that you would want to buy. But if you're looking at doing something that's going to be based on your data and your products to give you a competitive advantage, you're going to need to take machine learning models and train them on your data.
Thank you, Kevin. I just like to say to the audience that the Q&A is open. If you have a question for Anupam or Kevin, please go ahead and ask it in the Q&A. And while people are submitting questions, I have a question for both of you. I come from the pharmaceutical world, commercial. The time from a boardroom decision to implementation could be as short as a month. We want to redeploy our sales force. We want to make a new campaign. We want to change our messaging, et cetera, et cetera. How patient should business leaders be when it comes to implementing AI and harvesting the fruits of AI?
Anupam, you want to take it, or I can take it?
You go first.
Let's go Kevin first, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I don't think you should ever be patient. So I'm not a patient, but I think you should always keep your foot on the gas and push people to go as hard as you possibly can. I would say with any of these things, look at where your constraints are, and, do you have the right people? Do you have the products? Do you have the data? Do you have your infrastructure set up to do this? And if you don't solve those problems and then try to push your organization to meet the kind of time and expectations that you have, I think beyond that, it probably is a situational dependent thing, but I would keep your foot on the gas because the rest of the world is not slowing down.
Yep. So what I have seen is let me rephrase this in a different way, right? You're trying to do something, and obviously somebody has to pay for this to do something. And you want to look at, as I said, like you have to look at your entire organization, entire flow, and find out what are the things that are going to give you the biggest bang for the buck, right? Once you have figured out those things, right? Pre-production, production, supply chain, marketing, sales, where are you going to get the biggest? And then if you see that most of the AI adoption, if you see right now in the world, is happening with NLP because it involves either customer service or sales, right? And that's the reason those things are happening, because the people easily see that there is a bang for the buck. So you have to figure out those nuggets where you can get quick wins and then bank on that, build a foundation, and then do other things, and build on the top of those things, right? So that's what I would suggest, right? Rather than, but again, it's a discussion. It's not, it's harder to get buy-in when you have people who are very used to doing things in a different way. Yeah.
Thank you. And maybe Anupam, we continue with you. One question here is, who are in charge of AI projects in the organization? Where should these be grounded? Is it with the senior management? Is it with the IT department? Is it commercial? Who owns this project? Do you have a take on this?
Great question. It should always be owned by the business unit, right? There's no question about that. It should always be owned by the business unit who is trying to drive this. And I will take an example is like, we have run into innovation department who came to buy our technology, buy our solution. And we quickly realized that what they were asking was very different from what the actual business customer needed. And the moment we started talking to the business customer, their need was completely different. For example, the business customer wanted to set up a co-working space, and they wanted to make sure that every employee who is coming into the co-working space had in their mobile app in the morning before they come in, to see how many people are in the co-working space so that they can decide whether they want to come in or they want to stay back and work from home. Whereas the innovation department was like, hey, we want to just detect mask. This is two different things. One is an algorithmic problem. The other is actually a business solution. So somebody needs to think about the business solution, and therefore it should always reside. The business initiative should come from the business. And then the algorithm part would be done by, let's say, your ML scientist or a data engineer, but it needs to be sponsored by the business. So when you say where it resides, to me, the sponsorship responsibility is always with the business.
Kevin?
Yeah, totally agree with that point. I'd say practically speaking, it's like the early days of the internet. It doesn't have a home right now. So we see companies where it's in the marketing department. It might be in a line of business operations where, in terms of like, there's almost always an executive or mid-level manager champion that's driving it, or a small team. And it can be as much as one or two people, and they're just putting it on their shoulders, and they're getting it done. And often these are the people that, these are often the most aggressive up and coming stars in the company. And usually after a year of pushing these kind of initiatives forward, they get promoted pretty often, but they can live anywhere. Sometimes they're in IT, sometimes they're in a line of business. Sometimes they're in marketing, sometimes they're in a product. It really comes down to the individual because there just isn't a good home for AI right now.
Great. We have a question here from Wolf, who's asking, I just wonder, right now, if you can get a competitive advantage out of AI because only a few businesses are doing it, what will happen when a majority of businesses are doing it? Kevin, you want to start answering that?
There's no end. Like, it's going to keep going, right? The research is going to keep coming. There's going to be a next thing every week. And we're going to be in a perpetual arms race. There's no, I'm doing it, you're not doing it. This is the future of software. This is the future of work. And it's just going to keep getting better and better. And it's just, you just gear up to think that our business now is about speed and acceleration and adoption, because there's no end line here. Whatever comes out a year from now is going to be obsolete.
So jump on this train that's coming at the end of the tunnel is what
That's right. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it is a train. Get out of the way, or get on board.
Get on board.
Anupam?
I agree with Kevin on that. It's not anymore a question of competitive advantage. You have to do it. There is no other way. And if you actually think that few businesses are doing it, probably the ecosystem that you're looking at is slightly smaller. Maybe you want to look beyond it. If you are thinking that few companies in, let's say, Europe are doing it, but just expand your vision outside, right? And look at Asia, look at US, look at even the African continent. I mean, there are really good companies coming out of there who are doing AI, and it's just going to scale. There is no stopping here. NLP is today, tomorrow it's computer vision, next day it's robotics. So there's no stopping. Yeah.
You have both provided the audience with great advice. So maybe the answer to my question I'm going to ask in a minute is just the opposite of what you've said in the last 40 minutes or 50 minutes or so. But if you would have to choose the number one thing for business leaders not to do, Kevin, what would that be from your experience? What have you seen? What is the number one mistake that companies do?
Wait, do nothing. I mean, because Anupam's right. Like, this is no longer a question of like timing. This is all happening. It's not a question of if. And so, what is the future going to look like? Well, I mean, it's going to be very different. We're not going to build software the same way. Our operations aren't going to be the same way. Look at customers. I mean, we're no longer talking about the Facebook audience. We're talking about the TikTok audience. People's expectations are going to be interfacing with the algorithms, and so you gain nothing by waiting. You might make the wrong decision and waste some money on something, but you can be darn sure that by waiting, you're creating the biggest possible risk for your business.
What they should not do, that was your question, Christian. I think I agree with Kevin that waiting is not something to be done. One other thing that I would say that they should not do is set up an innovation department to do these things. Because this is not an innovation department thing. It is a core business thing. Innovation department is probably just going to struggle a lot before they end up figuring out what the actual business needs. So don't set up an innovation department and say like, I have ticked my box of doing AI.
That's also waiting. Like, setting up the innovation department is waiting. But we're not sure what to do. We'll create an innovation department. Yeah.
But that doesn't work well. Yeah.
One last question coming from Kevin, who's asking, is Agile or Scrum teams a suitable framework for these mixed teams working on AI projects? What's the configuration? What do you recommend?
You have to modify Agile for working with data science and experimentation, right? So the difference is traditional software projects, you can put your features together and, put your storyboards and your Jira tickets or whatever framework you're using, and you can plan it out, because it's not, there's a bit of unpredictability to it with software, but in data science, you really have experimentation. So as you start thinking about your Azure release process, you have to bake experimentation into that. And it means that what the data scientists, the next breakthrough in the model, that doesn't always adhere to a schedule. Sometimes they may need 2 weeks, 4 weeks. 6 weeks to get something. So you have to figure out, how do we adapt Agile to include data science discovery into it?
Is that your experience as well, Anupam?
Yes, I think one of the key things is that when you're talking about Agile, it's a spirit rather than a framework, right? Agile is more about getting feedback quickly. And so if you can create a system that allows you to get quicker feedback from your experiments, do everything that will make that system successful, right? So it doesn't matter whether you follow Agile, Scrum, Kanban, or anything else. What matters is, are you going to be able to get feedback from whatever you are doing? And in this case, if you're building algorithms and you're putting them into solution, how are you going to get a feedback? And I just want to give an example from a colleague that I worked with some time back. They built an algorithm for a very promising retailer to pick up which warehouse the item should go from when somebody clicks and says, like, I buy this thing, right? And they have to pick up which warehouse it should go from. And it's just super complicated because people can buy from anywhere in the globe, and you have to figure out which warehouse. It's not just the nearest warehouse, because the nearest warehouse could be not having the item, or maybe it is too expensive to get that item to the nearest warehouse. And so you have to think about various things. And they continuously ran experiments for 3 months to figure out which algorithm is the best to put there, right? And you have to run those experiments. Without those, you cannot actually get to the success, so-called success, yeah, with algorithms.
Great. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to extend a warm thanks to both you, Anupam, and to Kevin. Thank you for joining and sharing your experiences. I think you fully lived up to my expectations, and I believe that the audience can walk home with some concrete advice on how to take this on. Thank you very much for answering questions. Thank you to the audience for asking great questions. I appreciate it, and good dialogue. Thank you for being and allocating time for this webinar together with ATV and sponsored by the Willem Foundation. You have both said, and for the last 2 webinars in this series, we've had hundreds of signups who are interested in this. So it's really a hot topic, something that everyone's interested in. So I'm very happy that we are able to facilitate this through remote software now that we can't be together. One of the topics that's consistently come up is around ethics. And that's why we have, for the last of the series, we have on Monday, November 30th, we have a focus on AI and the ethical challenges that it proposes. If you don't get this right, you probably won't get AI right altogether, and you'll end up in a significant amount of trouble. And we have Frank Rodgich, who's going to talk about AI and ethical challenges, and he's been working with this topic for a long time. He's actually a researcher and practitioner from Canada, and he's one of the foremost experts in this field. And he's going to talk about how to do this ethically correct and share some of his advice. So if you haven't done so already, please sign up for the next webinar on November 30th. With that said, I will just hand it back to you, Leah, in Copenhagen to maybe share your thoughts and wrap up the session.
Thank you very much, Christian. Also a big thank you from Copenhagen to Anupam and Kevin. Thank you for your advice. Waiting is a no-go. Get on board if you're not already there, and make it a part of your core business to do IA. And don't go looking for some experts that are very hard to find. Use your current talent, use your existing teams, and give them possibility to shine on this artificial intelligence. Thank you so much for your advice. To all of you audience, we are making the best we can to make these webinars as productive as possible, but we would very much like to have your view on this. So please give us 5 minutes for an evaluation. We will send out an email shortly You just have to click on it and it will be 5 minutes, and we appreciate so much your feedback. So thank you in advance. And then from here, I will just say, see you at the 30th of November for this next very interesting IA update on the ethical dilemmas. That is very important. If you're not dealing with this, everything can be lost. So please join us for the 30th of November. The signing up is open on our website. And thank you to you from California and Georgia. You must have a very nice day, and looking forward to see you again. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.